Franz Nahrada, welcome to Radio Earth.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very much looking forward to this conversation, which, interesting enough, we both conduct in English language, although we both are from Austria. We could speak in an Austrian dialect, which kind of brings us already to the topic, because your work, I am tempted to say your life work, is very much connected to the idea of village development. And you connect your background, which is next to a philosophical background, also a technological background, and an ecological background, the development of villages and a particular vision of villages that I would try to describe a very intriguing combination of the global village, meaning connected through the internet, and the local village merging in a synergetic whole. And you see this, if I understand you right, not as a nice romantic game, but as an alternative global development. To start with, does this in any way meet your work, the way I try to describe it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, maybe there were some phases. We both share a kind of sort of leftist political past, yeah. So I think it is very, very daring to question the nation state, and as the framework for human being, there are only a few people like Ernst Schumacher or Leopold Kohr who dare to say that we need, also from the political point of view, we need a different environment for humans to thrive. And I have to say, this idea of the village, it came step by step in my life. You know, that the first step was emotional. I simply felt that I grow, I can breathe. I start to live, you know. I made this personal experience. The city is a stuffing environment for me. It is full of people that don't know each other, they don't care for each other, things like that, you know. And it is scarce of resources. You have not enough place to do the things you like to do, and there is a lot of competition in the city, and all this, you know, this emotional, how should I say, almost like being driven to the dream of a different life, you know, a life in the countryside, that was already very deeply rooted in my youth dreams, you know. Although I was a city person, but I made vacations, and I had an auntie in Dubrovnik. She lived in a small outside district, and she had like this farmhouse type of living. And also when I went for skiing to Salzburg, I enjoyed this beautiful environment in Saalbach-Hinterklemm, where we went up the mountains, and suddenly you have this infinity around you, no? This incredible space around you, the mountains, the view, and everything. So first of all, it was an emotional attachment to this idea that the city is not the ultimate and best human environment to live in. This was just at the beginning. And then, of course, there are many steps that you see that is possibly possible, to see that this is not just a pipe dream, but with the new technological developments, the means of communication, it is in fact possible to live wherever you like to live in the world and yet participate fully in the world intellectually, get access to all knowledge, get access to a lot of people, exchange a lot of viewpoints, and even travel around. This is not a forced travel. The travel of the communication age, we always imagined it as a as a as a kind of sort of uh, voluntary and how should I say, intentional activity.
Mhm.
So that village actually, of course, has some internal relation to rural areas, but also nature and the living of humans. And then is the next thing is that the ecological side of things, caring for nature, being attached to nature, that comes automatically, or we thought it comes automatically with being close to nature. So experiencing it and knowing how to take care of it. So yes, in fact, this is the core of my vision, and I think it is multifaceted.
Mm. But uh, uh, could one not say that this is maybe the best sense, but even in the best sense, just a romantic view? When we look at the development in the last 20, 30 years, where we are starting to create what we also have to talk about, the global village, where we look the also utopian hopes what would happen in the connection of the global connection in the first hopes of the internet, and when we see what had happened out of the internet and the commercialization of the internet, it seems that you are still holding on the hope that there is a connection between the I would say, as you described, nature relatedness or region relatedness of a global reality, of a local reality, and the connection of these local realities in a global scales. Is there an indication that something like this is a realistic perspective, and where would you see that?
I see that, in fact, there is a larger movement than we think of people intentionally returning to the countryside. Especially, we saw it in the Corona years, where people have really rediscovered that in an amazing speed. But there are certain strata in the population, like the nomadic teleworkers, for example, the people that travel with their laptop around the world. They recently there was a conference called Rebuild, and I was so fascinated by the amount of creative village projects uh, all around the world, but especially in some countries that foster this attraction to this foreign population, like Portugal, Costa Rica,
Mhm.
and similar countries, yeah, where you see that actually there is a growing number of beautiful intentional communities which fully embrace also this idea that they have to be in communication with each other.
Mhm.
So yes, it's still a tiny part. Then there is this fantastic movement that was started in England called the transition movement.
Mhm.
Um, and I think transition movement is um, one step closer to reality. It's about existing towns, existing villages, if you wish, uh, where you see that the solution of the urgent problems of the past, of the present, and of course of the menaces that are all on us, the solution to the climate crisis and things like that is local. Yeah, the famous saying that Rob Hopkins says, if you wait for the nation state, if you wait for the large corporations, then you will not see uh, fruitful action. If you think you can do it on your own, you will also fail. So look around you and see that there is in every location there is a lot of people with potential, and try to do things that are right, and try to do it immediately yourself without asking for permission. That is the but do it in a way that is convincing, that is how should I say, that is where the results are, the fruitful results, the positive changes, the positive changes are visible to everyone around you. So it's not about negativity, criticism, things like that. They don't really help us in changing the world. But you have to give a positive example. And transition towns, there is at least 2,000 transition towns around the world. So there is this logic where we start to develop like a social permaculture. It is we simply see that everything that is close to us has an enormous power and impact in our life if we understand that, how we can activate it in a positive way. The power of closeness, die Kraft der Nähe. This is a force that you can unleash, and it's very necessary to communicate to people about their potential to kind of sort of make a big difference.
You mentioned
Hmm?
you mentioned the power of closeness. And I, doing interviews like this and having the privilege to talk to pioneers of this kind of work, there is one thing that surprised me and struck me, how for many, and transition town movement is one example, regenerative cultures is another example, the practice and the philosophy of permaculture seems to be a very foundational impulse. And permaculture is a particular relationship to nature, to agriculture and gardening, that very much kind of revolutionizes, I would say, our human relationship to environment. Because it is very different than usual kind of also just rational orientation, how we organize a garden, how we organize a transition town. But it is very much, I would say, a listening capacity to see what is happening and how what is happening is able to find itself in synergetic relationships and then respond to that. Would you say that this is part of also a different way of understanding who we are as human that is in the core of this transformative movements?
Yes, definitely. I think that's what we are just rediscovering. I have recently met a lady from Brazil. She's architect and philosopher, and she coined the term fourth nature. You know that we simply must transcend the phase where nature is an external force that we are afraid of and that we have to fight. And then in the second nature, nature is something to be subdued, even by submission. But you have to sort of impose, yeah, Bacon. nature is only subdued by submission. You have to understand, yes, you have to understand, but it is like you have your human goals and you bring them to nature, and that is building the roads, building the channels, refactoring the landscape, so it becomes a productive organism. That is second nature. Then there is the third nature. This is the romantic nature as an object of external contemplation. Oh, isn't it beautiful when the mist rises in the mountains and things like that? You know, this idea of nature as aesthetic object. And so, if we transcend these three phases and we arrive at the fourth nature, we see that we are part of something bigger, and actually. You can start with your own body. You know, we suddenly understand that we are a composition of millions of bacteria in our biome, microbiome in our intestines and things like that. You know, so we are kind of sort of our life is kind of sort of a process of synergy between different kinds of organisms. And we feel that we must think in a way that we are not on the top of a how should I say, meaningless material world, but we are like in a circle. You know, we are in a circle with other beings, and we need to find ways that this synergetic relations between beings can unfold. Like Sepp Holzer and his Mangalitsa pigs, you know, or you know, nature does what it does, and if it does it according with its own laws, its own pace, it can be so much more productive, you know, than even the most productive agriculture, if you understand how natural beings act. And if you let them just act their nature out, it can be very beneficial if you understand it right. And it is much more, should I say, thought work, so to say, than industrial agriculture, for example. You have to know a lot about the needs and the abilities of the living beings around us. But it is rewarding. It is absolutely stunning what comes out of these synergetic relations. And the fourth nature is something where you don't know where the human ends and the natural starts. You know, it's like a blending.
I would like to focus on one part of your work that seems to be fundamental, the way I see it, because so much what you kind of seem to focus on is related to the term village and village development. So village development, as you described, there is a whole new movement of particular young people who leave the cities. Is a little like a new commune movement, like in the end of the 60s and the beginning of the 1970s, but with new ideas and with a new generation, with new thoughts. And the main difference right now to this orientation to the villages is that villages, and this is completely new, can stay villages, but don't need to be isolated.
Of course.
So there is a completely different relationship, how we, if I may say so, build the globe together. Because usually we had to build huge centers of connectedness, we called them cities, and then we had trade relationships between the cities, and you only basically can organize this in a bureaucratic nation state. But there is something where we, and with we I mean our species, humanity, can organize on the whole of the globe in a different way, where we really take advantage of what a village can bring to us, and that is, correct me if I'm wrong, relatedness. There's only so much of local environment that I can stay related in to really have human relationships. And what makes a village, and what differs to a city reality, not that it doesn't exist in a city, but the village is the archetype of this, is that we create our environments of relatedness where we have human instead of market or bureaucratic relationships, and connect this with the capacity to connect with other regions, with other villages. Is this your vision?
Yeah, but you have to understand that I try to make it much more concrete. And
Please.
concrete also means differentiate. So first of all, you're totally right. I think a gentleman named Prigozhin received an award, a Nobel Prize in theoretical biology for the proof that isolated systems are prone to die. You know, everything that is alive has to have outside relations. And we have examples of villages like the Anasazi in America that had relations spanning thousands of miles, you know, and it is totally wrong to think of the past as just isolated circumstances. Yes, we have grown this capacity to form more massive human settlements and even become sedential, which might or might not be. There is a controversy, David Graeber, beginnings, you know, but basically we see that this the main stream of sedential larger human communities also fostered war and destruction on a large scale. You know, that is the nomadic way of life was maybe a way of avoiding conflict, going away, you know, and the other one was clashing, fighting for land, fighting for possession, and it had its own logic of growing and growing and growing, and it ended up in empires. You know, that's where we are now. We actually are at the topmost scale of the sedential culture, so to say. But at the same time, we see that this is bringing us in a very dangerous situation. If we have a third world war, we all know what's the consequence. You know, mankind will hardly survive this escalation of power that is currently on its way. So, in fact, we have to think about different ways. We have to think beyond geopolitics, even beyond biopolitics. You know, all these ways, this ever increasing capacities of these political systems to control the life of people. Right? Biopolitics is about controlling their lives, their biological existence, and geopolitics is about controlling the earth, and both has to come to an end. And I think there are many people that try to think a totally different way, like Leopold Kohr or Ernst Fritz Schumacher, and even Christopher Alexander. Hardly anybody knows or wants to take it serious that the famous book, The Pattern Language, with 200 and more patterns, start with a pattern that has the top rating of Alexander himself. He said this is at least a 2-star pattern, you know, the independent region. And Alexander imagines a world where there is no empire, no large nation state. He says, if we want people to shape their lives, we can only do it in a world where the people in power, in the utmost levels of power, they're still reachable for the population. They're still in a dialogue, if you wish, with the people they make decisions for. So that we are far beyond this point. And Alexander says, let's imagine a world where no region has more than 4, 5, 6 million inhabitants, and it could be 1,000, it could be 1,500 independent regions. Independent regions. That's what he stresses, you know. And you ask how do these independent regions coordinate? How do they avoid conflict and fight and struggle? And first of all, it is because they are forced to compromise, because there is not this full spectrum dominance, you know, that today is the ideal of every empire. Like the United States is an empire that tends to look at every problem from the point of view of brute force, you know, because we can, you know, we can force them to alignment, you know. This wouldn't be possible in a world of decentralized power. But the second thing is much more powerful in my view, and that is what everybody seems has neglected so far. The second thing is that if we are connected by tools of global communication, and if we take it serious, that the main way of solving problems is to find a solution in the local scale, then we need a lot of knowledge to figure out how can we solve problems in a local scale. And if the whole world works together as one brain, it would find solutions for almost every circumstance, you know, like to collect waters in the desert. You know, it's possible, you know, it's not so difficult. But you can you have to understand that you must work with the resources you have. You have a lot of advantages, maybe look like disadvantages, but when you think of a hot country in Africa, in Sahara, and you think of the poor women that have to walk dozens of miles just to collect a little bit of firewood for cooking, you know. At the same time, you think about what if we collected and harvested the energy of the sun? We are the richest region in the world, you know. So every region has this kind of advantage that can be turned into material wealth. And that is makes them all different and the same in their basic aspiration.
Let me hone in on the difference and the same, because you brought something in that I think most of our listeners are not aware of. It's a very specific form of thinking that I would say exactly focuses on this on the simultaneity of difference and sameness, which is pattern language. And if I, from my lay perspective, try to describe what we are talking about, that every regional situation has kind of building blocks of synergy that are kind of have a universal quality to them, but a local way to apply them. So I understand what you call pattern language, and Alexander developed this, and interesting, it took off particular in the IT business as a way of thinking. Although he started it in architecture, if you think about whatever kind of regional setting and look of building blocks of synergy, and find that these building blocks of synergy allow us to simplify our thinking, because there are a certain number of them, but not it's limited, the number, but we can combine them in an unlimited way.
Absolutely.
And to have both that some universal principle, which I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, are principles of synergy, in how you build a house, how you create a garden, how you do, how you have conversation, how you create a software. And if we create these building blocks of thinking, we find a way that basically situations in Central of Europe and in South Africa are comparable, because the building blocks, you can bring one to the other and you create local synergy without neglecting the local necessities of a certain situation.
Absolutely. I think building block of synergy is a very good definition of what a pattern is. A pattern is a kind of evolutionary product, so to say, of many trials and errors. And if it's a well-designed pattern, and Alexander talks about patterns where human design plays a role. Yeah? It's not something that grows by itself, but it is also always conscious human culture or design that does it right or does it wrong. You know? And Alexander says, if you do it right, you can feel it. That's a quality without a name. It's aliveness. It's the fact, as you say, that a truly good pattern helps us in solving problems. That's the other definition. A pattern is an element, is a kind of structural element of reality, like yeah, maybe maybe what Alexander says in the beginning, an agricultural valley, for example. You know, it helps us to solve problems. We don't want to have too much agriculture at the slope of the mountain, so we build rather on the slope of the mountain, and we leave the ground to the flat ground to agriculture, something like this. You know, you can discuss every pattern that Alexander discovers, but he always says that there are more anti-patterns or non-patterns than patterns, so that humans can do things wrong. And when they shape their reality and they neglect the synergetic nature of the right solutions, they lose themselves in meaningless efforts. So it's another thing that I would like to bridge now, because it's really a good bridge of thought. The patterns of information technology are inherently synergetic and cooperative, and people who think about information as intellectual property, they are destroying this life-giving they're destroying this life-giving quality. If they cut something out of the cake and say this is mine, the cake cannot really, how should I say, uh, uh, cannot really start its life, because some elements are missing. You know, so to say, you keep them back and you want to sell them, but in this very moment when you keep something back from the living process, you already have destroyed potentials. You know what I mean? So yeah, patterns is a very universal category, very foundational, and I even think what you mentioned before, that the city is a useful pattern. If you think of the city as a network node. Um, Alexander has, at one point, he says, we need to find the right distribution of cities and countryside. If we lose ourselves too much to nature, we lose our culture. If we neglect nature and we refrain the city, the earth will go down the drain. You know. So it's to find the right balance, for example. And I always tried to coin a new term for large city. I tried it with the city of Vienna. I tried it in vain. The only city that has accepted this in earlier times, out of other circumstances, Kapstadt. This is the name Mother City. I like the term Mother City because it is a wonderful opposition to fatherland. It is Mother City is this strong center, and Alexander always talks about strong centers, which are a necessary condition of life. One moment, I have to. I have to. I have. I I have three devices that are ringing. Okay, so yes, strong centers. They play an enormous role. Everything that is a pattern has a center.
Mhm.
So to say, where the energies meet, where energies are transformed, and energies radiate to the outside. And so I think the same goes for the pattern of the mother city, and mother city would be a good pattern, whereas metropolis would be a bad anti-pattern.
Mhm. So interesting. If you compare this with nature and life force, in forests, you also have something like a mother tree.
Yeah.
So there is a pattern developing that basically is life conforming. And I would say life conforming is the same like synergetic, or synergetic. The definition of synergetic is that life is enhanced. And
Yes.
if I understand you right, you think that this kind of thinking, pattern thinking, has a particular advantage for decentralized uh, human ecological civilization to develop our culture in a different way. Would you say so? And do you see again examples for that?
Of course, I think when you are not in the position to impose um, kind of sort of global trade rules and rob other countries of their resources to build your beautiful metropolis, capital, whatever, and to build your beautiful palaces and houses and things like that. Uh, you have to, in this different way, you have to understand that you have to look very carefully for the life supporting elements of your environment, and you have to cherish them and to kind of sort of know them by heart. And this is again permaculture. No, permaculture uh, says that everything that is around you has a use, but you have to put it in the right place, and then miracles happen, because if this synergetic powers uh, at the right place, they can begin to flow. Then this flow is a kind of virtuous circle,
Mhm.
as you say. It is a self-enhancing, self-supporting structure. And yeah, of course, in permaculture, you have a lot of examples. For example, put the stones at the right place. They will connect the heat during the day, and they will cause a beneficial microclimate in the night. This is what Sepp Holzer did, or
Mhm.
he also used the quality of water to store temperature, and therefore on the top of the mountain he digged a lot of small ponds, and of course also these ponds they have this quality to create a humid atmosphere and nourish the plants around them and things like that. So we can learn a lot from permaculture, and of course it's not difficult to, like Rob Hopkins did, to think of social institutions as parallels to natural supporting elements, like the mother city or the village center that brings people together. Uh, I, I have to add that part of my emotional convincedness about villages did not stem from Austria. The
Mm.
Austrian villages were always dead for me. But when I came to Greece and I saw that they are arranged in such a beautiful way that after 5 o'clock, everybody drops their work and they come together in a central place. Before that, they make this little walk up and down to find the people they want to spend the evening with, the parea. And then they sit in the cafeteria and things like that. And suddenly, out of nothing, somebody comes with music playing, and it is like every every evening I was there as a not non-tourist. I was there in a normal village life, but it almost felt like this was a Greek evening stage for tourists, but it wasn't. It was their natural life. It was this celebration of life,
Mm.
and I think the shape of the physical environment is supporting that as much as the way we can transform information technologies to means of supporting our abilities in a decentralized way. I give you example. Um, we have now the potential to create decentralized automation, which means that a lot of intelligence can be applied to very small production environments. The classical factory actually is not necessary if we understand that a lot of intelligence can come into a smaller environment and a container factory with a 3D printer, things like that, can produce everything, every part that we cannot even order from the large factories anymore because they don't make them anymore.
Mhm.
So this is also example of patterns of life-giving synergetic structures, as you say, building blocks
How,
of synergy.
how do we create this? I mean, listening to you and listening to your um, example with the Greek village, my thought is what made the Greek village is tradition. People living together and learning together what in a village scale is life enhancing, and basically creating an ecological environment, including the music, including the wine, including, I'm sure, all the village fight that is part of this too, that has a life affirming capacity. That's the reason why it survived. That's the reason why it became tradition. So there's also a respect for traditional growth to allow structures and patterns to develop that we have not designed, but we basically have learned to be. At the same time, we also have to at least co-create realities like this. Do you see example for that? And do you find ways how we can learn this?
Well, of course, I have to admit there is this other side of tradition, which is blindness, stubbornness, um, ignorance. Yeah, and I also have. It did not take long until I discovered the dark sides of Greek villages, and and made me almost give up the whole process when I saw that the young people were fleeing because they couldn't stand this pressure anymore, this authoritarian pressure on the young generation, and they use the opportunity of the tourist hotels to work there, and then get involved with the tourists and go to Athens, Copenhagen, or wherever, just to get out of this, And then I saw the decline of villages. I saw these old people left alone, uh, getting sick, not being able to repair their houses anymore. So it was for me. It was also I also looked at this dark side, and I think that it is probably necessary that you have to go out to come back. This is also a pattern. This learning journey. You have to absorb the view from outside to be able to shape your own environment. So I think maybe it is necessary to go through this urban period where you have a lot of, how should I say, accumulated knowledge, and then go back to the village. That could also be possible. So I'm not just idealizing tradition and the way things were.
But still, the village that you're visioning is a different one.
Absolutely.
How does it become a different one?
That is, I think there is one main quality. You see this, here, here we have it, Oops. You see this, this little um, poster up there. It says Dorfuni, which means village university or village university, and we had a lot of phases where we were researching what is the main quality of the new village in the information age. Is it the fact that people are working from remote, or is it the fact that they have certain kinds of architecture? But eventually, the most powerful element was education. So only if we bring an educational system to the heart of the village that can help people answer every question with the best knowledge of the world. Yeah, this is the dream. The dream is that maybe there is not always a church, but there is always a library, or maybe something bigger than a library, a reference room, a kind of teaching center or information booth, or whatever you call it. And I have really had some friends that had a very vivid picture, vivid imagination of this education center, which is the prime condition to call a village a global village, and that made me understand that this is one of the main roads we have to go: create an educational network of sharing knowledge and supporting each and everyone in a kind of way that could be called paid forward. So we help you to grow in knowledge, and we don't expect you to pay us back. Paid forward. So when you have reached a certain level of autarky and frugality, and whatever you call it, when you have achieved to secure your own life and your own well-being, don't stop there. See that the whole world needs answers how to leave these ways that we are currently trapped in, and take part in this ever-growing network of educators, which are showing patterns of solutions.
Interesting enough, as we're coming to the end of this conversation, what you seem to point to, at least how it looks to me, is another pattern. Because there's a pattern. The way it shows up for me is of local embeddedness of the village, but universal informedness, which is education. And there is a positive polarity between this local embeddedness and this global informedness that can be very creative. And I can see how just having this together in itself is a life-affirming synergetic pattern that you're describing.
Absolutely.
So, Franz, thank you very much for this conversation.